Speaker reviews is a very serious business, and I take speaker reviews very, very seriously. There's been a lot of drama and controversy on my channel recently. I take full responsibility for what has happened and what has arisen, and for anybody who may have been offended by my actions, I have to say, get a life, mate. You wanted drama, you wanted controversy, you wanted excitement. Who are you gonna call?
Alan Ross.
On the table today we have the Tribit Stormbox Blast. I personally love the lights on the Tribit Stormbox Blast, but all of you are saying to me, can we turn off the horrible, astonishingly poor lights? And do you know what? There's a button I have previously told you about. I'm finding recently a big surge in people who just don't bother watching the videos at all and just say, is this good? Is that bad? Here's my question, answer it. Guys, you've got to remember, at the end of the day, if I'm spending 3 days to make a video to get about £4 in adverts revenue, if you literally are not going to watch any of the video, it's kind of to me. It's going, It's like, what is the point? Well, by the way, I was just talking about the lights. There's a button on there, I've told you before, and that was the whole point, is if you listen to my actual videos, you'd know what you do is you go like that. Like that. And do you see what's happened? We have turned the lights off. Yes, as a volume up and down indicator, it will still work. But it won't do, you know, the 70s glitter ball disco thing, having a rave, having a laugh. Personally, I like lights. I can't, but I know there's a lot of audiophiles watch my channel. I had one the other day. He told me he's been an audiophile since he was 9. I hope it really was audiophile and he didn't misspell that. Now we've got the Tribit Stormbox Blast. What else have we got on the table today? We have not one motion boom, but 2 motion boom pluses. You take the original Motion Boom Plus, you add another Motion Boom Plus, and what have you got? You've now got the Motion Boom Plus! It's even better, even louder, even more amazing. So, we're going to have 2... I've just realised, yet again, I've sat down without any of my notes. I could just wing it, or I could go and get my notes, because they've got all the specs in and everything. I'm going to go and get me notes. I've got me notes, and the whole point was I was looking for the prices, because the Tribit Stormbox Blast is going to be, if you can get it, around 160 quid, $200, maybe a bit more, because it's out of stock everywhere. You can't get it. It's so popular. And I have to say, in my personal opinion, I think this is the pound for pound world champion.
Winner!
For me, this offers the best value. It's become my go-to. That poor old Motion Boom is not getting picked up. Actually, you've given me an idea.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Got 2 Motion Boom Pluses. You know that I've got 2 Motion Booms. Gonna go and get me Motion Booms. By the magic of editing, I have now appeared with 2 Motion Booms. So, we've now got 2 Motion Booms. We've got 2 Motion Boom Pluses. We've also got a full Minirig 2.2 system. We don't really listen to that much anymore on this channel, but we should do. The problem with the Minirigs is when they're set up, they can sound absolutely fantastic. But it can be a lot of hassle. And even today, I still get connection issues or bugs, and I don't know how much of it is the speakers or the app, but you need the app to set the volume correctly when you go to a 2.1, 2.2 system, and even to set the stereo, because it should have a wireless lock. My wireless lock sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. So quite honestly, every time I play these, I have to go into the app, set them up as a 2.2, set them up as twinned in stereo, and whichever one I'm playing, I will get a message saying you're connected to the slave, you need to connect to the master. If I change them around, it's the same thing. However, when they are working, they sound brilliant. somebody did ask how would 2.2 sound against the Blast. So do you know what? One video, a whole lot of messing about. We're going to have a listen to all of them. Let me see if I've got anything in my notes that I should say before we get straight to it. Don't be an idiot! Even I don't know what's coming, and that's brilliant. That's the end bit.
A few minutes later.
Oh yes, I was going to tell you the magic of when you have one speaker and then you add an identical second speaker. I've mentioned it before, but magic happens because it doesn't go twice as loud, which would be a 3 decibel gain. It goes 6 decibels louder. Still not twice the loudness. About 10 decibels gain would be twice the loudness, but you get a 3 dB gain by having 2 speakers and then, in other words, doubling the power. But you've also doubled the surface area of the drivers, and you get another 3 dB out of that. So you'd expect about 6 dB. Of course, it never happens in the real world, normally around 4.5, 5 decibels. But that's the theory, as well as you can have well-separated, lovely stereo for immersion. Now, we have DSP in all of these speakers. They all have some EQ. You wouldn't be getting any bass out of these if they didn't have EQ. But that means that normally, for most of these speakers, they limit bass from 80% onwards. But at lower volumes, they increase the bass to make up for those low volumes. So when you have 2 speakers, for the same loudness that you'd be playing one speaker, you're now a lower volume step for the 2 speakers, which makes it normally more bass heavy because they have more bass normally on these type of Bluetooth speakers at lower volumes. So there's almost like a triple, quadruple whammy going on of all the lovely benefits of having a second speaker in stereo.
Awesome.
With the Motion Boom Plus, it was pointed out to me, and I apologise off the top of my head, I can't remember who it was, but he had this brilliant idea. Can you see what we just did? When you've got 2 Motion Boom Pluses, it's not just a case of, and now I've got 2, and look how wide it goes. You've actually got the option of playing them like that, which will focus the stereo imaging, rather than having it the tweeters, two tweeters pointing out, 2 tweeters pointing now. You see what we've done? It's like having a couple of tower speakers, isn't it? So you do have great options with the Motion Boom Plus. The newer one, hopefully you saw my previous video, does seem to sound better. The other thing to point out with is Motion Boom got twin woofers. Motion Boom Plus, twin woofers, twin tweeters. Again, the Tribit Stormbox Blast. At the moment you go and get it. I got a free one. Woo! You got twin woofers, 2 tweeters. But with the Minirig, and this is why it doesn't go as loud as people expect, and the reason is, so we've got 40 watts, but just check the specs on the power rating. I'm pretty sure we've got 40 watts to the woofers and to the separate subs. Do you know what? I wish I was more organised. But then life wouldn't be as much fun with it. So we're 40 watts on each of these, but because there's only one woofer, it's like, if you're saying the Motion Boom is 30 watts, but that's 30 watts to 2 drivers. If it was a single driver, you'd get half the volume because you'd half the surface area. And that's the thing. Having one of these was really like a 20 watt speaker in terms of those. So imagine 20 watts, and because this 40 watts is only driving the bass, again, it won't go as loud as you'd think 40 watts would go because it takes a lot of the amp to drive that. So although on paper, 80 and 160 watts, it's more like having an 80 watt speaker in terms of the volume you should expect. And by the way, what a coincidence, the Motion Boom Plus, a single one, is 80 watts, and it's 90 watts on the Stormbox Blast, however they're measuring it, blah, blah, let's not get into that. I have waffled a bit already. Brilliant. I love it when I waffle. Now, what we're going to do right now, we're just going to listen to them. So a single Tribit Stormbox Blast, mainly one reason is because I only have one, but the other reason is it's more expensive, isn't it? It's about 200 quid, and we do seem to be getting like £125 deals. So it's almost like 2 of those may be one. Is it better to have 2 of those than one of those? 2 Motion Booms. Would they still hold their own? It's going to be interesting. And as a reference point, a full-on Minirig 2.2 system all compared.
Every single day, every time I pray, I'll be missing you. Thinking of our day when you went away. Would love to say what I want to pray. I'm missing you. Every step I take, every move I make, every single day, every time I pray, I'm missing you. Thinking of our day when you went away. Would love to say what I want to pray. I'm missing you. I'm giving you the green light. I wanna feel you. Give me the green light. I know you want to. I'm giving you the green light. I wanna feel you. Give me the green light. You know you want to. Green light. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. It's 12 o'clock. It's time to take your shot. You're leaning in. Don't stop. Don't stop. I'm not gonna your dreams. We're picking out our rings. So get down on your knees. So get down on your knees. I'm giving you the green light. I wanna feel you. Give me the green light. You know you want to. I'm giving you the green light. I wanna feel you. Give me the green light. You know you want to. I'm giving you the green light. I wanna feel you. Give me the green light. I know you want to. I'm giving you the green light. I wanna feel you. Give me the green light. You know you want to. So I change myself to a friend. Some more again. It didn't matter what they wanted to say. He thought he saw someone that looked just like me. Of some memory that just never dies. We looked too long and hard to give it no time. 1,000 lonely stars hiding in the cold. Take it. I don't wanna sing anymore. I listened to your problems, now listen to mine. I didn't want to anymore. Oh, and we will never be alone again. 'Cause it doesn't happen every day. Kinda counted on you being a friend. Can't give it up or give it away. Now I thought about what I wanna say, but I never really know where to go. So I changed myself to a friend. 'Cause I know when it locks like a door. And we will never be alone again. 'Cause it doesn't happen every day. Kinda counted on you being a friend. Can't give it up or give it away. Now I thought about what I wanna say, but I never really know where to go. So I changed myself to a friend. Some more again. It's not understand. Don't get upset. I'm not with you. Whisper me around. It's all I do when I'm with you.
Breaking that all down, looking at the bass, the white line, the Stormbox Blast, you can see it's up there as having the biggest bass, the deepest bass, but that pink line, 2 Motion Boom Pluses, stronger in the mid bass. the Boom Plus and the Stormbox Blast out in front in terms of the bass, followed by the Minirig 2.2 system, which is quite upper bass slanted, and not far behind that is two Motion Booms, the original Motion Boom. If you look at the pure area for upper bass, so around here, it's dominated now by the Minirigs. That's the green line. Then neck and neck between the Boom Plus and two Motion Booms. And this is where the Stormbox Blast is a little bit weaker, but it's tuned for deep bass. Then we see big differences around 1.5 kilohertz to 2 kilohertz, where there's a peak on the Stormbox Blast, Minirig 2.2 not far behind, and actually quite weak in this area is the pair of Motion Booms and the Motion Boom Plus. And then the big difference is as you get to the very high end, custom EQ on these speakers except the Minirig 2.2, no tweeters on the Motion Boom, so you have to push the highs to get a bit more clarity out of it. Then the Stormbox Blast, a little peak there, 6 to 10 kilohertz, and then the Motion Boom Plus and the Minirigs, a bit more natural because the other two are pushed in the highs. You don't need to push the highs on the Motion Boom Plus because it's already a very bright sounding speaker. I should point out, these measurements are all when they're playing the same track. And the overview will tell us weakest in upper bass is the Motion Booms original, strongest in the mid bass is the Motion Boom Plus, and then it's between the Stormbox Blast and the Motion Boom Plus for deep bass. But the Blast extends deeper, so around 40 hertz, it's actually 6 decibels up on the Motion Boom Plus.
I have to point out, in default mode, it's quite bright deliberately on the Minirig Mark III because they expect you to listen to it like that. Obviously, it's going to sound a lot clearer and sharper if you have them on axis, but most people obviously going to listen like that. I think the fairest way to record them is at 45 degrees. So you're getting not quite full on treble and not quite full on off axis. And that's how it's recorded. However, what we got from that is the amazing value. Tribit Stormbox Blast, despite two separate subwoofers, actually goes deeper in the bass, 3 decibels more overall. Minirig, all Mark III subwoofer, but all the subwoofers so far seem to be more about giving you punch and a bit more upper bass so they can hold some volume rather than going deeper. I wish we could get some bit more warmth out of them and go a bit deeper, but they do great things. You get decent separation, you get nice clear sound, but when it's all about bass, when you buy a speaker for deep bass and you're expecting deep bass, two separate subwoofers, true subwoofers, it's a bit disappointing. Well, it's great news for the Stormbox Blast, one speaker, cheaper than buying all four. I mean, they're about £140 each, 280, 560. That's not cheap. But when it is working, it does sound great. It's not just about volume and going deep. It's about the great separation. It's getting on for a hi-fi-ish, proper hi-fi-ish sound. You do get great separation. You do get a good sound stage. And it is pretty accurate to the original track. The Minirigs will give you detail that is completely missing on the Tribit Stormbox Blast. But you don't get the meaty, it's such a lovely sound. It's a really meaty, deep bass. You know, it's not aggressive, but it's powerful. For me, it's my favorite listener at the moment. For the money, I think that's, what do you think, like the little BO Sound A1, 200 quid. And it's around 200 quid. Yes, it's heavy. Yes, it needs a mains lead to charge, but hey ho. The great thing about this, I have to point out, is I'm doing these in custom EQ. I didn't do custom EQ for the Minirigs, A, because it doesn't stick, it's app only, and also because when I was recording this, I couldn't even get into the app. It kept complaining about slave master, it doesn't matter which way around it. It's just too fiddly, and you need to get into the app to set them properly. So I don't know if they were even doing their maximum volume or not. I couldn't get into the app. But as far as I know, they were properly set up for 2.2. But even in default mode in 2.2, if you go into the app, you can actually push the subwoofers even more. I just didn't get a chance to because I couldn't get into the app while recording this. Do you know, I was saying, oh, maybe this is the pound for pound world champion and this is the form. But it's this, whether it's the current pound for world champion, whether it's the former pound for pound world champion, they still put up a hell of a fight. Still stonking value. And while it cannot go as deep as Stormbox Blast, and that's really what this is all about, lovely, warm, deep bass without being so overpowering that you can't really listen to it. It is an overblown deep bass. Well, in default mode if you use X bass. I'm using custom mode, which is still quite bass heavy, but you can tune this neutral and it still sounds great. And that's the thing, not all speakers are EQable, as they would say. This is highly EQable. The Motion Boom cannot match that bass. But when you've got two of them versus the Stormbox Blast, there's a sweetness that is missing from the Blast. Maybe because we've got a 5.5, confirmed now by Tribit Moharinga, I don't know how you pronounce his name, but it looks like that on paper, has confirmed a 5.5 kilohertz dip on his Tribit Stormbox Blast. So it's not just mine, it's actually there. So that's going to rob it of sweetness. So we are stronger in the all-important presence region on the Motion Booms. For some people, that may be a reason to go for boom. So I'm declaring that a draw. Can hold its own, it just can't do the deep bass. And there's things to say in favour of the two Motion Booms, and there's things to say in favour of the Tribit Stormbox Blast. And then, of course, we have two Motion Boom Pluses. I don't know if you heard it, but I have to tell you, when I fired up the second one for the first time, something magic happened. The harshness just went. The bass seemed to be fuller and deeper. And it was so much more enjoyable. So sometimes adding a second speaker is like doubling the pleasure. Sometimes it just gives you wider stereo. But in terms of the sum of the parts being greater than the whole, for two Motion Boom Pluses, abso-bloomin'-lutely, I have to say something magic happens when you have, was my experience, two Motion Booms. It's just a different listen. So comparing it to two Motion Boom Pluses versus one Tribit Stormbox Blast, it's actually quite close now. Is it another draw? I would still go for a single Stormbox Blast, but it's gonna, if you're going outside, that's gonna, you're not even gonna get the benefit of the deep bass. You will get the benefit of the extreme punchiness of the Motion Boom Plus. While it sounds warmer than a single one, you lose the harshness. You know, it sounds great. Whereas I can't really listen to a one on its own. It's still not that pleasant to me. It's certainly the better deal going outdoors to have two of those than one Tribit Stormbox Blast. But still, it's not that EQable compared to how you can customize the Tribit Stormbox Blast, because I can change the whole nature of the Tribit Stormbox Blast. I can't do that with the Motion Boom Plus. You still hear slightly bright, slightly harsh, although I'm saying with two, it's almost gone, the harshness. But the nature of the Motion Boom Plus remains. It's not as EQable as the Tribit Stormbox Blast. So for me, indoors, single Stormbox Blast, outdoor, no-brainer, two Soundcore Motion Boom Pluses. So the only thing that remains is, can it hold its own at maximum volume? So it's already quite close. Obviously, I didn't even mention, but you know, the immersiveness of having two Motion Boom Pluses is on another scale of a single Tribit Stormbox Blast. So that's in its favour. Maximum volume. All these speakers compared to each other. What's going to happen?
What everybody say? Now it's gone away. Rocks now dead, nothing left to say. No one gets today. We got to face the truth, now it's all away. Tell me what you want, here's what you got. You've been every day more than we have ever seen. Rocks now dead, don't ask why. Silence on the weakness.
So the big win for two Motion Boom Pluses. They are the loudest. By far, they have the biggest overall bass, 4 decibels up on a single Stormbox Blast. But even then, it cannot handle the deep bass of the Stormbox Blast, which still extends further than any of the others, even though they're pairs. In terms of the best balance here, and in terms of what's easiest on the ear, it will be between the Minirig 2.2 in pink and the Motion Boom Pluses in white. But overall, the 2.2 Minirig system, the pink line, is still pretty accurate to the main original track, while the others become brighter as you push certainly beyond 80%. The original Motion Booms, though, really do hold their own. In terms of pure overall volume, it's only a decibel behind the pair of Motion Boom Pluses. Even in terms of peaks, it's almost the same. But that's because it has a bigger roll-off. It's rolling off from about 300 hertz. So that's the biggest roll-off in terms of the bass, which is allowing it to go louder in terms of the mids and the highs. The others are retaining more bass. The Stormbox Blast is rolling off not till about 55 hertz. The Minirig 2.2 is rolling off from about 85 hertz, and the pair of Motion Boom Pluses is rolling off from about 75 hertz. Remember here, in terms of the highs where the more rolled off on the Minirig 2.2, recordings are at 45 degrees because in default mode, it's meant to be played on its back where you wouldn't have the woofers face on at all. 45 degrees, I think, is the fairest way to record it.
I have to say, I did hear some annoying pumping going on with the Tribit Stormbox Blast at maximum volume. When you really push it and the bass comes in, you're overwhelming the amp and you're losing like on the mids and the highs because it just can't do that at the same time. So it's not distorting or terrible or anything like that, but it is struggling with, a punchy bass heavy track. There was some pumping in and out as the bass kicks in and out. You'd have to listen for it, but it was definitely there. But the winner, the winners here, it's clear. I mean, it's clear. It's not even close. Two Motion Boom Pluses takes the day. By far the loudest. And the surprise was, who's the next loudest? It's two Motion Booms. Well, that's because obviously there's a big roll-off, the biggest roll-off of all these speakers in the bass for the Motion Boom. But hey ho, you're still getting the mids and the highs. May sound a bit too shrieky for you, but look at the size of it and look at the price of it. We'll get to that in a minute, but still stonking value. Who is a real pound for pound champion? It's a hard call now between the Tribit Stormbox Blast and the Motion Booms that can still do the job. Still going nearly as loud as look at the size of the Motion Boom Plus, and on paper so much more powerful. And yes, it's holding more bass, but it's still notable. It can still do a job. The original Motion Boom, the most overall bass, mids, highs, deep bass, by a massive margin, 4 decibels, massive advantage to the Motion Boom Plus. Maybe the disappointment here is the Minirigs. Even when it's rolled off bass, it's matching the 2.2 system. As I said, I couldn't get into the app, and that's because it's so flaky to really check that I had it set properly for a 2.2 system. The woofers, the subwoofers were clearly working. You wouldn't get any bass if they weren't working, but whether the volume was correctly set, I can't tell you. And that is the problem with the Minirig system when it's working absolutely fantastic. And I have to say, of all these speakers here, the Minirig 2.2 were the most accurate, and at maximum volume, the most balanced. But hey ho, didn't go as loud. But I explained why it doesn't go as loud as people are expecting, because a 40 watt on a single woofer driver is like 20 watts on a twin driver. You'd get the same volume because you've got twice the surface area. So that always catches people out, because the woofer, it's cost more in the amp to go loud, and we've only got the surface area of one driver, so it's not going to go as loud as you expect for on paper for 40 watts. But in terms of that deep bass, only one winner. It's still a single Tribit Stormbox Blast. We can only dream. If Tribit ever sent me a second Tribit Stormbox Blast, we can blast away the competition and set them up as a pair. But you can't even buy one, even if I wanted to buy my own, because they're out of stock everywhere. But hey ho, maybe they're watching, maybe they'll send me a second one just for laughs and kicks. But the problem with the Tribit Stormbox Blast, well, obviously, we're asking a lot. We've got pairs of everything else, but only a single Tribit Stormbox Blast, but you can hear it's a bit lost. The volume ain't there. It is behind the others. So if it's all about volume, that's the one area. It won't go as loud as a pair of the others. But don't look at the price, 560 quid for a full Minirig system. It's, you know, in its day, there was nothing really to touch it, but we've moved on. But Minirig are not bringing out anything new. Everybody is asking the question, why do Minirig not make an all-in-one? I really don't know. To me, it makes absolutely no sense. That sounds absolutely fantastic when it's working, but you've got to set them all up and pair them all, and that's the nightmare because you've got to use their app. Why don't they integrate them into a single system? Nobody can understand that one. I talked about the Motion Boom Plus, the Motion Booms rolling off, but do you know what? In terms of that deeper bass, it's still retaining at 40 hertz. It's actually 3 decibels up on the Motion Boom Plus. The Motion Boom Plus has a hell of a wallop, very, very punchy, sounds full, but it really doesn't go that deep. And that's the thing to remember. When you add a second speaker, it won't go any deeper. You can't extend the bass anymore. It will just be punchier and louder, of course, but it will not go any deeper. The Motion Booms go deeper. That's going to shock a lot of people with its single woofers, as opposed to where it can actually separate out the tweeters and the woofers, making life easier for the woofers. And yet, deeper bass motion. What's that all about? So that's pretty much it. But Alan, there's still something we need to know. What do you need to know? We need to know, what does 2 Motion Boom Pluses sound like when you have them against a single Motion Boom Plus? Oh yeah, that's a good, you caught me out there. Didn't think about that. All right, let's have a listen.
Every single day, every time I pray, I've been missing you. Thinking of our day when you went away. Would love to say what not to pray. I'm missing you. Every step I take, every move I make, every single day, every time I pray, I've been missing you. Thinking of our day when you went away. Would love to say what not to pray. I'm missing you. Tell me why. Thinking of our day.
And as I said before, that magic happens when you add a second Motion Boom Plus. I'm not saying it goes that any deeper. I already just explained it won't go any deeper. But the harshness seems to evaporate. The bass seems fuller. It sounds a bit deeper, although it isn't deeper. And suddenly it's a great listen. It's a great outdoor listen. A pair of, I mean, it's still a great price, isn't it? A great price, really light for its size and what it delivers. You're going to have a party, a pair of those, you're away. It goes loud, got a lot of slam, still at maximum volume, covers all bases, and as has been pointed out, you can even play it like that. What more could you want? I don't know how this is going to come out. It just came into my head, but in my head it said, what more could a girl ask for? And exactly, so many jokes, so little time, yet again. But that's the end of my video. For anybody still left watching my channel, all the hardcore fans, even people that have been on the channel, I've got to point out, they've been very, very focused on telling me they love my channel, but they're not fanboys, so that's good. Or is it? Anyway, I kind of liked having fanboys, but anyway, nobody wants to put their hand up and declare themselves a fanboy. Hey ho, life still goes on. I hope you got something out of this video. Someone who's been on my channel for at least a year. I say at least a year because I've seen them commenting commenting for that long actually said they get nothing from my videos. I thought, stab me in the eye, why don't you? But there you go, 3 days of work for one of these videos. You get absolutely nothing out of it, apparently, and you watch me for a year. But I don't know. Then he said, well, he's using a translator, so maybe it's lost. I don't know. I don't know. I read, that's the problem. I read every comment, and I probably shouldn't. But, you know, I do it out of respect. I think if you take the time to leave a comment, whether it's trolling or whether it's drooling over what I do, I have to respect anyone who takes the time. But there you go. We did it. We got to the end of it. Another video where he's waffled, and you want to know why doesn't he take it all serious, blah, blah, blah. I do take it serious. Tell me what I said wrong in this video. No, I'm not going down that route again. Anyway, I'm trying to sit here and enjoy myself. That's what it's all about. The minute I don't enjoy it, I ain't going to sit down. I thank you for watching. You're still watching me, and I thank you. Well done. I'll see you in my next video.
I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Ain't no project wife, got my logic right, guess I'm not your type. I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Sorry, ma, I ain't get it right. I'ma just live my life. I ain't about that. I ain't about that life.